My name is Jasper de Beijer. I'm an artist of 37 years old. I've been working as an artist for 10 years now. My main focus lies on history and anthropology. And mostly what I do is I take resources from anthropological books or historical books. I use them as a reference to reconstruct reality from that starting point. So what I mostly do is I start from there, start rebuilding models, scale models or life-size models from paper or any other material. It depends on the topic. So I completely reconstruct it out of photos. I built this reconstruction in my studio, and I take pictures of that reconstruction, and that's the end product. So I'm going to start with a little overview of my work, of what I do. And the main focus of my presentation is going to be a new project which I just launched. It's called the Recollector, which is a three-dimensional collage made out of fragments of the Dutch photo archive, the Sparnestad photo archive, which is an archive of 11 million pictures, which I used as a reference base to reconstruct that archive in the computer. I've built a kind of a virtual museum in which you can walk around like in an actual space where all the fragments of the pictures are starting to create one new reality. So this is what I'm mainly going to tell today. I went to Ypres in Belgium, which was the place where they fought the heaviest battle in the First World War. And for me it was really striking to see that when you think about First World War, there's always a kind of a closed-off romantic of the First World War. When you think about it, you always think of these kind of trenches and black and white pictures. So also when you watch Discovery Channel about the First World War, there's always this kind of typical way they show this war. And the difference between that and when I read testimonials of people, diaries of people that actually were there, was so big. The personal suffering and the imagery, the romantic imagery of the World War was so different that I thought, you know, it's almost impossible for me to get behind the reality of such an event. So for me as an artist, it gets a topic which I can walk around and study and take out all the dramatic stuff I need from it and blow that up and create an artwork from it. So this is what I did. I created a kind of hyper-real First World War experience. Well, this is a real picture. Actually, this is put into scene a year after the war, just for the press agencies in Germany and stuff. So, because it's too hard to do the photography from the trenches, so they actually built extra trenches behind the lines to make those pictures. So I reconstructed again a tank out of, I think it was 20 or 30 soda cans. I built this complete tank and then I took a grinder and grinded it all. Broke, so I think this whole model is about this big. Drives. I read a biography about a guy called Richard Burton. He was an explorer in the 19th century, and he tried to discover the sources of the Nile. Well, he failed, but he wrote a great autobiography, a diary about this. And the good thing about this autobiography is that it's really a scientific way of looking at his journey. But when you read it, the further he comes reaching his goal, the less scientific his ideas become. So he's still thinking that he uses a very scientific method of looking at the world around him, but on the other hand his perception getting smaller and smaller. So the difference between that and reality is bigger, but he tries to present it as reality. And in the 19th century, all the explorers that went to Africa, the stories they sent back and the pictures they sent back were all presented as a kind of objective reality. But when you read his diary, you immediately know that it's just a guy being in trouble there. So Udongo was for me quite an interesting project because it's a kind of a combination. I've been to Ghana, Togo and Benin in 2001 because I wanted to investigate the difference between the image you have about Africa, the ideas you have about Africa, and reality. And I thought that going there I would encounter a really mysterious continent where magic can happen and blah blah blah, what everybody thinks about Africa. So But the only thing I did there was, you know, I had to phone my mother, so I had to find a phone booth. I had to get some money there. I had to send an email. So I found that the reality of being there was much more banal than the imagination I had before I went there. So when I came back a few years later, I thought, you know, I want to recreate that whole trip, but then only from the images that are present in the media. And when you look at what's happening in the media with Africa, there is a kind of an anthropological Africa, there is a journalistic Africa, and there is this kind of romantic Africa in which artists use that, or adventures or documentaries. And I have this book at home, it's called Africa Ceremonies, and there you see the standard pictures of the Maasai people jumping, or the Yoruba in their suits. And the first thing that struck me in those pictures was there's no garbage in the pictures. So they take these pictures in a way that everything is ideal, exactly the way you expect it. So you have this idea about how it's going to be, and the photographer and the editor of the book makes a decision that you are completely satisfied with the image that is presented to you. There's nothing that gets out of bound there. So I made this kind of a collection of all those images, which I thought were really typical, and I made this kind of a typology of all those pictures together, and I tried to find the most typical iconic image I could find about Africa and try to create this kind of a reportage picture series. Like this guy is just life size, a little bigger I guess. I made his skin out of leather. Here with the pickup truck. Everybody knows a picture of black people in the pickup truck. Everybody knows that. So when you show this picture, a lot of people that never seen that picture before, they say, I've seen that picture before. Because every time there is a conflict somewhere, you know, there's always those guys riding around the corner with a pickup truck. So for me, as an artist, that's really thankful, because I get 95% from the audience. I only have to add 5%. The 5% is what I build here, and the 95% is the perception of people that say, like, oh, these guys are child soldiers, blah, blah, blah. And so for me as an artist, that's really a luxurious position to take. In fact, a lot of people think the people are holding guns in their hands. But, you know, this guy is just pointing like this. So the imagery is so strong around a subject like this that you automatically get all that stuff for free. So for me as an artist, I mean, those days, modern times, are really, really good for me.